So my name is Mechial. I'm a qualified financial advisor and I help people better manage their money.
I'm Ian Dempsey, money coach, aka the money man. I'm trying to think of something funny to say, but I couldn't. That's about as funny as it gets for me.
My name is Laura Ann Moore. I am a financial coach, speaker, educator, and I help women to confidently build wealth.
My name's Rotimi Merriman-Johnson. I run Mr. Money Jar and I'm also a qualified financial advisor.
I'm Emmanuel Asuquo, aka Uncle E-Man, financial advisor, author, and all things money.
Wicked. So
Powerhouse.
We're here today to combine our expertise and talk about a number of different topics. We've got how many topics are here in the jar, Ian?
There's 13. They're the ones that were kind of the top ones that we picked based on the prequel, and it's in a what are they in?
It's in a money jar.
Yay! There we go.
I think the things that we talk about are going to help a lot of people. I think our opinions are going to resonate. So, without any further ado, let's get the first topic out. Okay, YOLO versus FOMO. What do we think? When it comes to money, should we be spending it all today, or should we be saving up for the future?
I'm on therapist code.
Cool.
And I was like, okay, my opinion on... Should I just do that?
Yeah,
Each
just
time,
in
so
case.
easier?
No. Is it fine in the middle? Yeah?
Okay, sorry. Okay, YOLO versus FOMO. I think that YOLO can get you into a lot of trouble. I think it's so easy to fall into the habit of being like, oh, well, you only live once, but life can be long. And if you spend everything in the now and you're not investing and saving anything for the future, like that's going to be a sadder existence than missing out on some stuff, being able to put away, save, invest financially, and missing out on some things. I do think there is a balance between the two, but I think that YOLO can get you into some very sticky financial situations, and people use it as a way to make excuses for spending habits that aren't really serving them. So I think if I had to pick, it's got to be the FOMO. Go for FOMO for a little bit.
That's fair. Do we have to choose one or the other? Or
Oh yeah, yeah. If I'm not picking, I would say like there is a middle ground, and I do like for me when I say 15 grand when I was like 19, there were things that I had to miss out on big time. But I can really see the impact that had because I was able to like save money, and I then spent all of that money traveling and had like 8 months of the most amazing experience of my life. So it actually gave me something in the future. It's kind of like immediate versus delayed gratification, and delayed gratification I think brings you better rewards in the long term.
Sounds good.
I'm going to chip in with a FOMO because I think, and actually I'm going to promote You Only Live Once because I think certainly as a parent when your kids are younger, you've only got that time once. And having 4 kids kind of growing up in the household and having them as little kids, I wish I could just snap my fingers and go back to that time again. I can't. You have some incredible times and stuff, but you try and make things work. It's probably the hardest financial time of your life when you've got all that money, and you can probably relate to that as well. Like, you haven't got a pot to pee in for the first few years of the kid's life, and you just kind of think, I'll just spend a bit of money doing something, but I probably did that too much. That's why I talk about what I do now, because I've got myself in debt, got myself in a mess. But when the kids are young, you're only going to get that time once. So I think if you've got kids, it's you only live once while the kids are young.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think for me, I'd say YOLO all the time, because I think what might come to mind straight away when you think YOLO is spending money or enjoying yourself. But I think YOLO can work the other way. So for me personally, it depends on the season you're in. But the season for me is YOLO now, because I'm never going to be this young again. I'm never going to have this much energy and passion again. So I want to build my business now and focus my time and effort on that, because I'm not going to get this opportunity again. So I think YOLO can work both ways. It's not necessarily about spending and enjoying your money. It can also be about investing in yourself, investing in your business, investing in your skills, because this could be the best time to do that. And that then is going to reap the rewards in the future to have a different type of YOLO, which is to start drawing down on that and start enjoying yourself and reaping those rewards.
Love that.
I'm good.
I think when it comes to you only live once, there are some things that are non-negotiable for me and that I'll just spend money on. So that's anything to do with my health or spending time with people that I care about. So that echoes the thing around like having children. I don't have any children that I'm aware of. But I think there are some things that are non-negotiable and that I'll spend money on. And then there are other things I'm happy to sacrifice for and like wait a little bit. And that's the balance that I would strike. So I think it's just about allocation. Cool. Next topic. I'll go for a yellow one this time.
Ooh, mix it up.
Need a drum roll.
Yeah. That can be post-production.
Okay, this is going to be a good one. Pensions versus ISAs.
Ooh, controversial. Ivan, you can go.
I can go. I don't know, man. I just think with my own life experience of what's happened to me recently. My dad recently passed away, and he saved all his money in his pension till 67, took it and died at 68. I just think, like, having all your money, like, even when I sit down with clients will say, when do you want to retire? I want to retire at 50. Well, pensions are no good to you then, is it? Like, do you know what I mean? Pensions are great, but you're putting all your money into something that you can't control when you get access to it. So for me, I love the idea of ISAs and being able to, if I need it, I can access it, and being able to, you can potentially leverage against them and all sorts, and what you can invest in, and that can be for the future, but also can be for the here and now as well. I guess the benefit of pensions is the whole tax thing, but tax thing for the future. We don't know how long we've got left. So for me, if it had to be one or the other, I'd rather focus on an ISA than a pension.
Anyone else? I mean, you go.
So yeah, I totally agree with Emmanuel. Like, obviously from an objective place, pensions have tax relief, etc. But for me, personally, my highest value when it comes to money is freedom and certainty. So if you put money in stocks and shares, ISAs, you, as of the current rules, you can access that when you want, and you know that with a level of certainty that money is accessible at any point. Whereas with pensions, if they turn around and said, right, 55 and that's it, that's definitely the age you can access it, then maybe you'd use pensions, but that could change. By the time we get to 55, it could be 65, and essentially you may never be able to access it. So for me, personally, if I had to choose one or the other, there's always an element of balance, but I would stocks and shares, ISAs all day long.
And we already know it's going to 57 by 2028. So that's the first age rise.
And they're already talking about 10 years from state pension age is the next thing they're trying to put through. Yeah. And state pension age is looking like it's going to 70. So it's looking like it'll be 60 before you can get your own personal pension, which is what they're discussing now. So
yeah, I'd kind of, I say it depends on which stage of life you're at. I think if you haven't got a plan, pension, because it's kind of you putting something away for the future, and I'm a big believer in building habits and starting those habits early, compound growth over a period of time. But I think if you've got a plan, i.e. you're not going to go to state pension age, you want to pack in 65, 55, 40, whatever it might be, that's where your stocks and shares ISAs come into play, because it gives you that flexibility. There's no hard and fast answer on it, really. It depends on the individual, and it's always such a furious debate. Like, we get comments on all of our stuff of like, you should be putting it all into one ISA, and you should be like, and people just tear into you for like no reason on some of it, and it's always an interesting debate. But for me, I'm a big pensions fan.
Yeah, I agree.
Big pensions fan. But if it was one or the other, I'm going to go down the side of pensions.
Nice.
Wow.
Fair. I'm an ISAs girly. I will say to people, like, figure out what you want. Like, you have to decide on your financial goals. And even if you don't know exactly when you want to retire, the whole access to money thing, I think, is so important. Freedom, knowing you can access it. And I think it's easier to do it the other way around and pay into an ISA and then go, oh, actually, I've changed my mind. I want the tax benefit of a pension. You can't do it the other way around. So, yeah, if I had to pick, ISAs, hands down, and buy pensions.
Shut down.
Without repeating what's already been said, I think it's just worth reflecting on the tax treatment of both. So the way I like to think about pensions is they're more of a generational wealth building tool. So should the worst happen and you pass away, your beneficiaries will get your pension savings as a tax-free lump sum. And you also have the larger annual limit on that. But if you save into an ISA, then that can potentially form part of your estate and then may be subject to inheritance tax. But I think I'm on the side of ISAs. I think there's a lot of rhetoric in the UK around just like endlessly deferring gratification into the future. But I think we're moving into a world where you want to be a lot more nimble and have choices and options, and being able to access your money does give you that.
What about for kids? Because that's a hot topic. Would it be a junior ISA or a junior SIP?
I think that expedites exactly what we were saying, where I think the points have become even more valid for if you were looking for freedom, then the time horizon of a pension for a child is extraordinarily long.
Yeah.
And we're probably going to be merged with AI by that point. But I think then goes back to your point again, which is habits and planning. So I think at each point we've said is even more relevant.
It's actually true. It's like if you had a child at the end of the decade, so like 2030, they potentially wouldn't claim their pension until the 22nd century.
That's nuts.
That's insane.
Yeah. So
I personally don't think that by that point the pension, stocks and shares ISAs, the way we manage money will remain the same for that. I don't think it survives the test of time for that long. I think we find better ways of doing it.
that's a good segue into the next topic, which I'm going to kind of make up. which is AI, artificial intelligence versus human intelligence. Abs, I feel like you got a lot to say
Yes.
about something.
So this might be controversial, but from what I've seen and what I've taken from AI is that, to give kind of some stats, they believe that the AI is going to be 1,000 times smarter than the smartest human being we've ever had. Just by that alone means that everything that we currently do, whether it's financial, whatever that might be, will be changed. It has to be. If someone's 1,000 times smarter than us, they're going to figure out a better way of doing it. So essentially, I think AI is going to not only disrupt the economy and disrupt the way we manage money, I think it's going to completely replace it with a brand new system. And I think I've always personally thought it's crazy that most people will get paid a lump of money each month, that most of it has to go somewhere else every time anyway, but they have to figure out a way of managing it themselves. So I've always thought there needs to be a system where your bills are automatically deducted from your employer and you're left net. It makes money management easier. And I'm a human being that's just thought of that. So I think AI is going to come up with a way to just replace our entire monetary system and give us what we really need as human beings, which is our 100% focus on the things that we're good at and removing the need for everything else.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't like it. I feel like as much as it's the progress and it's the way it should be going forward, for me, I like to go into the supermarket and speaking to the lady while she packs the bags and having that conversation. I liked the communication that we had. I liked the fact that I'd go out and play with my friends. And I like the fact that even silly things like we watch TV at a certain time to watch a certain show. Like my kids don't. Life revolves around whatever they want. They can freeze this. They can watch this. The other day, my daughter was watching stuff in Japanese. She don't even know what they're saying. She's loving it. Like the world's just gone crazy. Do you know what I mean? And there's just so much stuff out there. I just think, like, when do we just get to interact with one another and enjoy being human beings? And I feel like with the technology and with the AI, it's just creating more of a distance between us. We're becoming less. Look, everyone's working from home now.
Thing is, though, and I totally agree with that. And I think AI, the objective of AI to do is give us the options of spending our time 100% the way we want to. So, for example, that interaction in the supermarket, although I agree, I like to interact with other humans, what about the other person on the other side? If working in a supermarket in a cost of living crisis is really hard for that person to enjoy that job, they might love it, but it's really hard for them to do financially. So if we have a brand new monetary system that allows people to do whatever they want without worrying about money, then the interactions we have with human beings are going to be of a much better value, because everyone you interact with is going to be doing what they are passionate about without having to worry about finding financial resource to do that. So I think it actually could have the opportunity to bring us together and make us genuinely the best versions of each one of us, because we're doing what we want to be doing without the force of having to do it, is my point of view.
But it all depends on if we cash in on the technology, and this is something that human beings are really bad at doing. We come up with new inventions, and then those inventions make us work more. So if you could go back 100 years and tell people when they were writing letters to each other and posting them, in the future, we're going to have a way to send letters to each other instantly. It's called email. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
They'd be like, oh, that's great. everyone will have so much free time, but we haven't done that. Now we just send hundreds of emails.
That's a great
But
analogy.
that's in support of AI, because AI is finally going to solve the issue we have, which is us. We are the issue, from what you've said, human beings. So AI will be evolving through its own learnings and not eliminating us, but removing us from the use of the technology itself. So the point you made is great, and I totally agree with it. And the common problem we've had for generations is that as human beings, we can either use those technologies to help ourselves, or we can use it to create inequality and use it in the wrong way. With AI, what it does is it doesn't rely on us anymore to make those decisions, because it's superior in intelligence and has no emotion. It can continue to improve the technology without us having to have an input. I know that sounds scary, but that's what we kind of need. This is the first time in history we're going to have an evolution that doesn't take into account human flaws. So it evolves in the way that you want things to evolve, which is without the things that we do to make things worse.
I think the only human flaw that can kind of counter out that is greed.
Yeah.
Who polices it? Like,
polices itself.
who puts...
Because it's more
How?
intelligent than us. That's what super AI is. And I know it's like sci-fi stuff, but it is. So essentially AI is like, this is the most effective way of managing resources on this planet, and this is how we're going to do it.
But when that now comes into contradiction to the major banks and the major pharmaceutical companies, we see it right now where there are cures for stuff, but it costs thousands to get it. Yeah. And that's done on purpose because people are making money from it. So when AI hits those that are in most power, and now all of a sudden billionaires are no longer going to have all this income that they're used to because AI recommends that we go different. I just see people being people and saying, well, we need to stop this. We need to put a clamp on this.
They can't stop it. There's no way of stopping it. So right now,
Unplug it.
Wow.
Unless you remove everyone from the internet.
Yeah.
And a lot of AI now is so ChatGPT is eventually going to be able to be used without the internet. So it's going to be almost impossible for greed to come into this, because you're putting the access to knowledge, resources in the hand of every human being across the planet, and it's empowering everyone. And there's hardly anyone that can gatekeep it. No one can hoard it. No one can remove its access from other people. That's why these large institutions, and that's why a lot of these banks, etc., are so against it, because they know what it actually means. It means imagine having that power in every individual's hands, to be able to have access to resources, knowledge, tools. It creates a level playing field.
Yeah.
There's also the dark side of that, though, isn't it? All that knowledge and information. Like, not everybody's going to be completely ethical with the information that they use and how they use it. But does AI automatically police that to make sure that stuff doesn't actually exist, and you can't do that?
It does. So the other day I was using the new feature of AI where you can talk to it, and it said, this goes against our guidelines.
What did you say?
I said, can you respond to me in a way that works within your guidelines? And then it did respond, and it actually gave me a better answer. So, look, I'm not 100% pro AI. I'm actually a human being. I'm not a robot. When I was telling other people, they say, are you AI yourself? I'm not going to lie to you. For a second, I was like, I could be AI and I don't even know. I literally could be. I don't know. Like AI apps, I don't know. It could be me. And yeah, 1% of me was like, what if that's true? But anyway, I won't go off.
I feel like my brain can't comprehend a world that far down the line, because then I start being like, hang on a minute, if the little old lady's not working at the supermarket because she doesn't need money, because she doesn't need jobs, is it going to be a robot? Oh wait, then we won't even have to go to the supermarket. Then it'll be like, I actually can't get my head around it.
I agree with you.
It's too extreme. It's like, if it's so clever and it's going to change everything so much, well, and you say like humans are going to be able to lean into their passions and their purposes. AI might make art or do all those things for us, and we'll just be these little quivering people in the corner, like we don't know what to do.
That's. Do
you know what I mean? It goes that way.
That's Wall-E.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great film.
But then again,
Shout out.
It's a great film.
But then again, there will be such thing as human art versus AI art. So we'll know something has been created by a human being, which will increase its value, because you're like, wow, that's amazing, and that was created by a human being.
Yeah.
So again, the reason why I'm really positive about it is because these are great questions, and even the smartest minds that we have won't be able to answer them as well as AI will, because it'll be 1,000 times smarter. So it will already, as long as AI believes that it's there to serve humanity, then everything it does is to improve everything for us. And we don't have to figure out how it's doing it because we're going to just be like, well, our lives are improved. And we didn't need to figure out how.
And I love that. But I think for me, like where I am in life, the reason I love my life so much is because I've made so many mistakes.
Yeah.
And to
That's
like,
true.
do you understand? Like
That's
I can
really true.
appreciate where I am today and what I have and the way I live my life because I've made mistakes and because I've had failure. I mean, if I've now got a machine that's always getting it right and always like, how do I appreciate what I have if I've never had to work for it or never had to fail or never had to make a mistake and have to bounce back, have that bounce back? That's part of being human.
Yeah. Do you know what's so weird? I literally on the train on the way here, I'm reading the book. Morgan Housel,
Yeah,
The Psychology of
Psychology of
Money.
Money.
Yeah.
I'm reading The Same as Ever, which is his second
Seen
one.
it, yeah, I haven't read it.
So good. But anyway, love it.
AI
So
can't do
good.
that.
AI couldn't respond like
I
that.
didn't do that. As an AI myself, I couldn't do that.
That's true. And it talks about this idea of how when something is too efficient, it's not good. So, like, for example, if a lion could be more efficient in catching his prey, it needs to be bigger. But the issue with that is then poachers are more likely to catch him. So at some point, it tips the scale. You could be perfect and efficient in one area, but there's then a weakness in another area. Like a tree gets too big, like really big branches, so that it can catch more rainfall, but then it's more prone to falling over because of the wind. And there was this quote that said, like, I can't remember exactly what it said, but it was like, with efficient, if you're efficient, you're doing things wrong. And it basically is like, there needs to be room for error and mistakes and even like, if you're somebody who needs to be very productive and you've got a calendar that is like blocked out, but you're not leaving any time for thinking and pondering,
Facts.
like you fishize things. Is that word?
I don't think so.
I think those are.
It is now.
I think
Do you know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah.
what if AI might make things too efficient?
So those are great points, and I'm just going to default to this answer each time, so you're going to hate me for doing it.
Is it
You
gonna
can
be-
tell me
Must
to
be
leave.
AI.
You can tell me to leave. But
Abs is a robot.
This
But
is
the-
not within my community guidelines. Sorry.
that sounded like me as well. The way I see it is like, if every thought process, every topic, every conclusion you've just come with has been like posed by a human being, right?
Yeah.
So they are at the pinnacle of their career. Like a Morgan Housel was, you could argue, is
Love
almost
it.
a philosopher.
Yes.
But then you've got an AI that will be 1,000 times more intelligent as a philosopher and can take those things into account and say, right, human beings need to make mistakes to learn. Therefore, we're going to create an environment where they can learn and still make mistakes.
Yeah, facts.
So it will continue to always provide us with what we need at a level that we didn't even know was going to help us. It will always do that. It will understand us better than we understand ourselves. It will provide us with solutions to problems we didn't even know we needed. It will allow us to make the mistakes that are valuable for us to learn, but help us avoid mistakes that are invaluable. So it will always have a way of delivering to humanity everything it needs in a much better way than we could ever for ourselves.
I can't believe it when I say it.
That transition
You're taking
period is
that,
going to
yeah.
be like,
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Going back to kind of what you said, that transition period of like
Oh, that's going to be chaos.
total acceptance by everybody that this is how it's going to be, right? And everything's going to be hunky dory and everything's going to be great. Great, let's get there. It's like everything's fine, but that period of getting there, that's going to be open to so much abuse by people.
Yeah.
And
At the time.
the wrong people will be able to manipulate that. Does that then put them further down the line and have a different reality? It's kind of...
So these are great points. I thought about all of this being a AI. So essentially, it will expedite its learning to make sure people don't manipulate it, and it will penalise those that do. So if people use it for wrong, it will eventually say, right, you know, you've made these mistakes.
You're cast out into the
Yeah,
wilderness.
it's almost like right now, people still do that. They always abuse technology. And then you
Facts.
have judges, you have a court system, you have a judicial system. AI is going to be sat behind each one of those and making everything 1,000 times better. So the minute it identifies people manipulating AI, it will move 1,000 times quicker than our current governments. Like, look at our governments now. They're not quick at stopping. Look at corruption. It's something that's happened since the beginning of mankind.
Yeah.
And AI will solve these problems a lot quicker. So I don't want to be a broken record, but I can't see anything where it doesn't solve problems better.
I think
Mystic, I like it.
I think that the world doesn't need more intelligence. I think it needs more love and trust.
All the intelligence is in this room.
Because no, absolutely, because the AI could look at us and go, do you know what? It's better for planet Earth for people to not be here and then just
That's the
wipe us all
basis,
out.
Yeah, or put us in cells and say you.
I think what we need is more to go back to Eman's point. We need more connection, love, and trust. As this pertains to the financial system, I don't think money is going to be around forever because it hasn't always been around. What's actually existed is humans doing favors for each other.
Yep.
And if you exist in a sufficiently small society, then I do you a favor, you do me one, and that kind of happens. It's only once you get into sufficiently large communities that you need a medium of exchange. So I give you money, and then that's like proof that you've done a favor for someone else and you do it for someone else. But as we're seeing in the world today, the monetary system is not working because the deal was supposed to be that you did 40 hours of work a week and you got enough money to feed yourself and your family, and that doesn't work anymore. And so we need a way to, I think we'll probably get a universal basic income or something where, like, as you said, Abs, all your bills are kind of taken for, and then you just have spending money. But yeah, I think if we all infinitely trusted each other, we wouldn't need money. We would just do things for each other as we always have. And that's the system that we need to work towards. I think if we end up with more intelligence in society, I think the AI will just be like, well, these people, they pollute, they kill each other. They're selfish, just get rid of them. They'll probably just blast us into space and then the Earth will heal.
Wow.
No, I hear you.
Someone going to pull the red pill and the blue pill out in a minute and disappear down a rabbit hole. Wow.
I think I think one thing I do. I was in Trinidad a few months ago, and literally walking. There's mangoes. There's banana from the trees. There's fruit and veg freely available.
But the only animal that pays to live on planet Earth.
It's us.
Yeah.
It's mad when you really deep it. And when I was thinking about it, I was like, the reason that we don't have, and then I did some research, and like one of the reasons why there's so much pollen is because we only have male plants or whatever, so that's where we just said they don't mix, so we don't get fruit and veg. But when you really think about it, that's so that fruit and veg can be sold in. Because if I could get fruit and veg free, why'd I go Tesco, Sainsbury's? Or we literally have people starving just so businesses can run. That's where we're at as human beings.
Yeah.
And it's actually crazy when you really think about it, why we allow that to happen. But because actually there should be certain things that are standard and available, and no one should ever go hungry or go without, because you could just grow them from the ground.
So, and you're talking in this country as well.
Totally.
This country, people living below the poverty line, can't afford to feed the kids, can't afford to send up the kids to school with packed lunches and stuff like that.
We're all familiar with the concept of not paying for things as well, because we have people in our lives that we, as I said, love and trust. If I went for dinner at my mum's house and then she sent me an invoice afterwards, we'd be like, that's really weird. But that's what you literally do to other people when you do stuff for them.
I saw a really interesting video that kind of talked about that, and it was like, we've lost the art of doing people favours.
Yeah.
Like, if my friend said to me, can you come pick me up from the airport? I'd be like, I don't have a car, so I'd say no. But if I had a car, I'd say absolutely. Wouldn't think anything about it. I wouldn't be charging her. And then if, like vice versa, and you don't even you're not tallying them up, it's just you do it. But some people have lost the art of like doing those things. And this woman basically said she took her kids round to her friend's house, and she made her friend made everyone dinner, and then she was like, oh, like I'll let you know how much the food was, and she was like, oh, I thought you kind of like invited me round, and that was even just like socialising. And obviously you have the argument of like, maybe that person really genuinely couldn't afford it, probably shouldn't have invited them round. But this idea of like doing things just because that is what living
without
is.
expectation.
And a lot of the reasons why we struggle to manage our money is because money is not human. It's a thing that we've made up that is actually, you can just do really weird stuff with. I don't know, the thing that comes to mind for me is like credit default swaps or something. You can take an insurance policy out against debt. Like, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it's all made up.
But doing stuff for each other is human.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. And I think, imagine a world where, have you guys heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Yeah.
So imagine a world where we only need to take care of the top part. And the rest doesn't exist.
And everything else is taken care of.
That's what...
that's how you see AI.
That's how I see AI. It's taking care of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, of the stuff we don't want to do. Like, if you ask everyone on this planet, apart from people that might not be right in the head, like, if I could click my fingers and all you need to focus on is what you actually enjoy and have a passion to do, and don't need to worry about everything else, I think most of us would be like,
what about people that have passion for like business?
for business.
Do you know what I mean? Like people that like I can't think of an example.
Alex Hormozy is someone I think of. I've never met anyone more obsessed with business, but yeah, that's a great point, and I think
It's chicken and egg. Though,
it is.
isn't it?
But how many people care about business
Yeah, but
versus everyone else on the planet that doesn't and just cares about having their needs?
No, but doesn't
Yeah.
really
But
care
then
about business, or does it care about
Money.
the
Yeah.
money
Yes.
and the conversion?
Yes,
Like, so
true.
I mean, you meet someone that sells cars.
Yeah.
They love selling, but it's the process of.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not really.
What's
They just love to
behind it.
sell.
Yeah,
yeah,
Do
yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Also, like,
True.
I was speaking to a psychologist about this recently, and she was like, money is just a tool. It represents things beneath it that we want.
Yeah.
So for that person, obtaining billions of pounds beneath it means they might just want acceptance and acceptance
Facts.
and approval of others, which essentially is one of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So they think they need money and to make money when actually they're looking for a different need altogether.
Yeah.
And imagine spending your entire life thinking that you're solving that need by trying to.
Yeah, but that's capitalism.
Yeah.
It's constantly being told like you aren't enough as you are. So
Yeah.
if you have money, the more money you have, the more things that you can buy that's going to make you feel better.
Yeah.
Actually, like say under that, it's something you could get in the now from friends, family, like
Yeah, it's the only places to get it, but some people try and substitute it with just accumulating material things that don't actually mean anything. And money doesn't. I know this. Money doesn't exist anyway. Like since we came off the gold standard, it doesn't.
It's not
It
real.
doesn't exist
It's not
anyway.
real.
I try to tell people this all the time. They open up. I was like, open up your bank account. These are just numbers.
Yeah.
It does not exist.
Well-
It's an IOU. If that bank turns around and says, "Sorry, we actually don't have," which has happened before. We can't pay these.
It's
with
an
their
insurance.
debts
It's an
back.
insurance claim. Like
Yeah.
the FSC is an insurance
Immediately.
claim. And if all the banks went bust, do you think we'd all be able to get our money back? Because we wouldn't.
By definition, we wouldn't because
No.
they cannot meet their liabilities.
I think people are wising up to this though because of what's happened with the cost of living crisis and interest rates. It's like the Bank of England can just raise interest rates and all of a sudden your mortgage is doubled. House is the same,
yeah.
mortgage is doubled. Where's all that extra money? Like
Even
going
COVID, when they started giving people like this money just to exist, and they were like, "Hold on, so you can just do that."
Yeah.
And then now people are realizing, "Hold on, you gave me that, and now I'm paying the price for it anyway because everything's so much more expensive because you pumped all this money into the system." Hold on, why are some people better off than others? Why are there more billionaires than we've ever had? Why are some people benefiting a lot more than others? Why do I look to my left and everyone around me is struggling?
That is because I'm going to try not to get too abstract. That is
get
because society
We've got a robot in the room, so it's
is
fine.
Yeah, I need to know.
society is basically one big monopoly board
Yep.
where like a handful of the players own all of the properties, and then therefore if you introduce money into that board for a few rounds, everyone will have money, but ultimately it will
Always
end
go back.
up
Yeah.
back with the people who own all the properties and all the train stations. That's why people are having
Great
to pay more.
analogy.
Yeah.
And I think people are waking up to that. And ultimately, imagine if all the players on the Monopoly board turn around and
Slower.
say,
No, I was ruminating. Sorry.
Yeah, if you own assets, it doesn't matter how much money is swishing about, you'll end up with the
Yeah.
cash
Yeah.
ultimately.
and I think that's such a great way of putting it, and it's probably one of the best ways I've heard it explained because everyone understands how
The
Monopoly
intelligence
works.
is in this room.
But the extra layer is, I'm learning as an AI. You've got some
He's going to be the
credits there.
smartest guy by the end.
Yeah, we're going to keep Timmy around, I think, Yeah, so I think the other element to add to it, and people are waking up to, is hold on, why am I even playing Monopoly? Like, I can just, if I stop playing and participating in this Monopoly, that person that's hoarded all the assets, it means nothing if they're there on their own to an extent. So, for example, you need all the other players to play in order for it to be effective or for the game to carry on, because ultimately if you look at it, you took emotion out, it is just a game. It works. Money and finances works to the same principle as many other games, including Monopoly. So people waking up saying, hold on, we are the producers, we are the ones that go to work, we're the ones that are the probably the most fundamental part of this whole cog. So if you take out the shareholders, yes, that would have a detrimental effect to the business. But if you took out everyone working within the business would no longer exist. So people are saying, well, we're of more value, but we're not rewarded according to that. So it's like a lot of people are like, I'm not playing this Monopoly game anymore unless the rules change. And I think that's what the shift that we're kind of going through, and people realizing that we actually have more influence and power.
I think
Until
that's
AI
as well
comes
a bit until.
Till my relatives come
I
along.
think that's a big thing about Gen Zers and Gen Alphas.
Yeah.
I think a lot of like boomers and like older people are calling Gen Zs lazy, or like they don't want to take part in like working or 9 to 5s or whatever it is, and naturally you're going to have such a range of people in every generation because it's so wide, but like I think they are like really waking up to it because they're younger and they've always had access to technology and like getting exactly. So I think it's I can definitely see how that's
and that's big for us as financial services. I don't know if you've seen the reports, but financial services are struggling the most with the younger generation to get them to actually come and work because it's just known for the hours. It's known for and it's not necessarily that younger generation are not motivated necessarily by money. And so because with financial services, even for me, the reason I got in it because I didn't want to be poor anymore. And so I was just like, where can I make money in financial services? We have a whole generation that are like, actually, I don't care about the system, about money. I care about spending time with my friends and my mental health and, you know what I mean, my well-being. And so all of a sudden, now financial services can't... they literally are struggling. Before, it'd be easy to get people in. They're literally struggling where people are saying, no, I don't want that job. Because I know what it entails. And I've seen my parents, I've seen grandparents, I've seen uncles, friends go there, burn out, not have a great life, even though they made all this money. And I think that's where, as financial services, we have to, we have to look at how do we actually engage that next younger generation.
I think it's such a great point. I think it's not just financial services. We are suffering because we have for a while, to be honest, we had a lot of older advisors. We went from 250,000 advisors to 25,000 almost overnight. So it's a struggling space anyway. And arguably, finances and education around finances is the core that everyone needs. So it's an industry that's at the core of everything and an industry suffering. But at the same time...
by a very select demographic.
Totally. But at the same time, you then got the culture in general beyond financial services is like, exactly like you said, like I've got nephews and nieces around that age. And they ask me some really prominent questions, which I have to be honest and tell them the truth. And I have to say, look, that you are right. There is a break in the system. So my nephew asked me, he says, why do we not use AI more? But no, I'm joking.
He says, are you AI?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So he'll say, look, I don't understand why only... He saw a stat the other day, said to me, what's your answer to why 50 families in the UK own more than 50% of the rest of the whole country? And he's only 17, so I didn't want to destroy his faith in humanity already.
But you came
close. At the end, I was like, I'm going to be honest with you, it's because of something called corruption, inequality, and our system is not a level playing field. And they're asking these questions. I wasn't asking that when I was 17. I was asking what you were asking, is like, how can I become one of those 50 families? They have like a certain level of morality and ethics. And I'm like, look, to be fair, from that perspective, I get it. They're asking some questions. And that's because they have access to rules of information we never had. And look, we can brush them away for now, but this is the next generation that's building for us. And we have to learn from them because we need to ask these questions as well.
That's why I love giving talks at schools. I don't know if you guys... I love it. When I give talks at schools, colleges... Like, I remember I was at a college, sixth form college, we were talking, and then one girl just said, sir, I was like, yeah. She's like, why do we have millionaires when people are struggling? And I said, you know what, we're going to stop the whole lesson. We spent the rest of the lesson, we had people coming in, we need millionaires. If someone becomes a millionaire, then imagine all the jobs they've created for them to be able to become a millionaire and so forth. We had other people like, no, it's so unfair. Why does someone need all this money? They'll never be able to spend it. And there are people that are suffering. There should be a cap on how much wealth anyone should be able to get. And above that, it should be given away. And it was just so wonderful. Like you said, this generation, they're not playing games. Like they've seen what their parents have been through, and they're like, I'm not having it. I'm not going to accept this mediocre life just to say that I lived, I got through, I got a pension, well done. My life means something. My time and my value means something. And so I'm going to get the most out of it. And I think that's wonderful. But where does that sit in the world? Because it's a completely different mindset.
Yeah.
It's a transition period now, isn't it? That's the thing. It's like it's two completely different extremes. And those age groups are going through that right now to change the world. And then... like some of the stuff my kids say, I'm like, I wouldn't, like how accepting you are of all kinds of everybody and anything. You're like,
that's it.
Wow, I would never have been like that.
Yeah.
And they would have been kind of judgmental. You would have kind of judged people, and even every now and again, the kids turn around and say, "You can't say that, Dad." And I'm like, "Am I turning into my dad now?" You know,
we might not want to like admit it, but the whole premise of capitalism is that you have to be selfish.
Yeah.
That's literally how it's zero sum.
Yeah.
If you have something, it's because someone else doesn't have something, and that's the entire. It's like a 250-year-old idea created by a person or by a group of people, and it's predicated on appealing to other people's self-interest and being selfish.
Yeah, when it focuses on like individualism as opposed to like community.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, I think we're seeing a massive resurgence of like this idea of community and it actually being brought forward to people's attention, like why it's so important. Different apps, different like websites and social media made out like it was kind of doing that. And it's done it in some ways, I think, but like actively like meet people in person, events, all that kind of stuff. I think that is like something that's so like on the uprise, which is nice, but it's like you said about going to schools. I looked after my 11-year-old nephew, 10-year-old this weekend, and he was like, is there any trillionaires in the world? And I was like, oh, I actually don't know the answer to that. So we Googled it. Apparently by like 2030, Elon Musk will be a trillionaire.
Yeah.
No way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's he.
Have you seen the graphs for the wealth shifts of where they're going from and who's going to have?
I don't think I'm personally
By 2030
chilling. I thought there are countries that could be chilling there.
I've
Yeah.
looked at that graph and it's genuinely
Crazy.
chilling. Like,
My
look, I'll send you
goodness.
that graph. It's chilling about where the distribution of wealth is going to look in 2030. If we think inequality is bad now, so there's and again this is like an. I'm going to say anyway. So basically, I just
Just tell her how it is. Come on.
yeah. So essentially, the idea of the middle class, the working class, and the upper class has only been really 100 to 150 years old.
Yeah.
Before that, what's an older system is peasants and lords.
Yeah.
That's all we had before.
Yeah.
And if you look at the graphs, you look at the data, you look at where things are going, we're moving back to that class system. of
Absolutely.
Peasants and
Wow.
lords. That's basically as brutal as it's looking.
'Cause
You're either
Elon-
going to be a lord and extremely wealthy, or you're going to be a peasant.
Elon Musk has 12 children. Most people can't afford to have one, and he has 12. So we are absolutely going back to that.
Yeah.
When my nephew turned around after I'd said, oh, Elon Musk is going to be a trillionaire in like however many years. He went, what's the point? You can't take it with you to heaven. I was like, that's a fair point. I was like, you know what's good?
I say that to people all the time. Like, there's no point being the richest person in the graveyard.
Yeah.
Like, you say that to clients, have those conversations all the time, and people are so worried about having all this money and protecting it all because of how we've kind of been brought up. But like, the staggering thing is, he's financing trips to Mars, to another planet, just because he can. And you've got people that can't afford to feed their kids and put money and put food on the table or pay for school uniform.
School uniform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, these
It's just-
billionaires know
that's
where
just
this goes.
crazy.
They know that eventually this leads to revolution, and it's no secret that a lot of billionaires are now trying to build private islands, and they're building like, what's his name, Mark Zuckerberg's building bunkers, and they're building these things because they know eventually if things continue to go as they are with inequality, history teaches us that there'll be revolutions.
Yeah.
And these individuals are not going to want to give up, because for them it's not just the money, it's not the billions or the trillions, it's the power, control, and influence that comes with it. So for them, and look, if you think about Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, and maybe 5 other billionaires, if they decided to switch off access to their services to us as normal people, the world would come to a complete halt as it is. If you think about it, if Amazon shut down, Facebook and Instagram shut down, all of us make a living from that. You know, if 6 or 7 billionaires got together and said, if you guys
That's why you
don't
need
get
to
back
get on
in your
LinkedIn,
box-
peeps, as well.
That's owned by Microsoft. That's owned by Microsoft, which is Bill Gates. And don't get me started with Bill Gates. Can we edit this stuff out? Because these are people I highly respect and think are great.
No. Like,
No.
say it.
But yeah, so essentially, look, at the moment, what's happening is we're distracted by our immediate inequality.
Yeah.
But what we don't realise is that it's making us separate rather than together. And everyone is focused on, you're the problem as an immigrant, you're the problem as a man, you're the problem, and we're fighting each other, being distracted, that ultimately the biggest issue is that we are giving up all of our resources, all our assets, all our power, all our influence to a subsection of people at the top who ultimately one day we're going to turn around and be like, we have given all autonomy to about 6 or 7 people, 6 or 7 businesses. These are the people that control most of the index funds.
Yeah.
The Vanguards, the BlackRocks. That money filters all the way up to them. So when you look at the S&P 500, it's really only 7 to 10 companies anyway. So if you watch The Matrix, when they extract all the energy out of everyone into the system, that's essentially what's happening. All of that's being extracted right up to the top, and then eventually they're like, right, we've got ultimate control.
By the way, the gems that can you imagine the 20-second, 30-second clips that are going to come out of what we just said?
We're either going to go viral. We're going to get knocked
There,
down. Hey.
It's just going to make us go viral. Just put a little in the comments, like, but it's fantastic. It's fantastic.
But it's true, and these conversations have to be had. And for us, people sense it, but they don't understand or can't articulate it. But for us, we can really break these complicated issues down that people just don't understand where they're coming from or who to blame, and we can, as people that work
Stop
in
the
space.
revolution.
Yeah. And you're fine, 'cause you're AI. So
So I will go back to my pod after this.
But do you think, like, I just think, like, for me, I don't know, maybe, like I said, because of what I've been through in life in general, I feel like I've just created my own, like, for example, when I see Laura, I see my sister. I don't care that she's white, because to me, we are very similar in personality, in the things that we believe in. And if I see someone that believes in what I believe in, we're family. It doesn't, I've got lost the concept of race, and no one can ever tell me anything different. Like, but then I go into a room and, you know, like, to hear Ian talk about, you know, male parents stay on. I feel, poor Ian, like, why? What's he done? He's out here, like, carrying the sword for us all. Do you know what I mean? And trying to, like, take down, and we need one another. But what do you think? Like, do you ever feel pressure, like, as a white man in financial services who seems to get battered every single day? Like, do you feel like you have to do something different or have to be different?
Wow.
Let me just put this back in.
silent tear rolls down his cheek.
I should have been more involved in the conversation up until this point, because I probably would have got away with that. Like, absolutely, and part of that is because we're at fault for a lot of this.
Yeah.
Like, when I look at we're talking about those financial advisors, like the average age of an advisor, and this might be a few years out of date, is 58, and you've got all this old boys club, and I wasn't part of it. I felt like I had to be part of that old boys club to have the nice car, the suit, the watch, everything to be successful. And it's only when stepping out of that and trying to do it on my own and coming across, actually, there's other people out there that talk about this in a way that I can and want to talk about. That means you can break that mold. But it's been tough. Like, the biggest critic I ever get on any of my content or anything I do online is from other financial advisors. And you can see the comment pop up. I don't even have to look at the demographic of that person. It's exactly the same all the time, and it's male, pale, and stale. And it's guaranteed guys over the age of 50 who just want to tear you apart. Like, oh, well, I build portfolios for clients, I do X, Y, Z, and this, that, and the other. And I bite my tongue on a lot of it, and I sit there and I think, well, you're the reason we're in this mess in the first place. You're the reason why all this regulation exists around everything that we do about money and control, because of what you've done and because of how you fucked the system up.
Hashtag
I think that's such a great point. I think it just brought me back to what Emmanuel was saying about the younger generations. Is they're calling us out on our shit, and we're calling the old generation out on their shit, and that's how it's supposed to work. So you're saying to them, "You fucked this up, so I'm going to fix it," and they're saying, "Well, you're fucking this up as well, so we need to fix it." And that's how we evolve. Like, ironically, if you look back, we're just learning the good things from the future the generations gone before us, but also like evolving and fixing the stuff that they've done. And as long as we continue to do that, then, you know, I still have faith in humanity and other things.
Sure,
but I think,
you do.
Make sure you've got that. So I think that it just does take courage, and it does take community, and it does take people with a similar mission to come together. You've brought us together, so you say we fucked it up, but you didn't personally. If anything, you're doing the opposite. You're bringing us together. Without you, we wouldn't have been having these types of conversations. So I think...
do you feel the pressure? Because, to be honest, there are people that would listen to you that probably wouldn't listen to me or wouldn't want to hear it from...
Do I feel
there's people that listen to you that wouldn't listen to Ian.
But in regards to people in power, they would... Because you're similar, from a similar background to them, and you say it, it means more. Like, even if you look at the course of history, if you look at racism and everything like that, it's always been, you've always needed allies that are from the group in power for things to go through. So do you feel a pressure to be able to say, look, I need to stand up for what's right or whatever?
To a certain extent, yes, but I think that first call we all had together, the one thing that we all said was impact. And I think we're all in a very fortunate enough position where we've built our own methodology of way of working and what we talk about on money and health and finances, and everything that we do is incredible. But getting together as a collective, the impact we can have is much bigger. And I don't feel the pressure. What I feel now is probably more expectation of kind of, actually, I used to look at the financial services industry as competition. So years and years ago, I'd look at everyone in the room and I'd be like, oh, you're competition. And actually, you're going to kind of try to take some of my clients, and I'm going to take some of yours and all the rest of it. Now, but that's how they want you
That's
to
how it
think.
was. You had the leaderboard. When you could
Yeah.
look in the office, the leaderboard
Absolutely.
I was
there.
about to say they do that deliberately.
But now I look at it and I'm like, actually, the right people are incredibly powerful allies, and that's why I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, as a collective, and there's just 5 of us. I had to almost look and count there. There's 5.
That's good maths.
The 5 of us can have a much bigger impact than we can do individually, but still have our individual impact. And I think that's an incredibly powerful space to be in for everything that we've talked about already.
I'll totally agree. And I think also, like, when you look at things in the past and how change actually happens, if you want to change a system and it's going to work against the people at the top of the system, you don't go to them for permission and say, hey, can you make a change to the system that's going to make it worse for you but better for everyone else? You have to almost force that. You have to look at what your strengths are and say, look, I'm not coming to you to help change a system. You obviously don't want it to change. I'm going to change it from within and lean into what our strengths are. And this is what I was saying, these larger networks, it's not the regulator either, because actually they're bringing in some great stuff to manage the people that I think are breaking the space. But these larger networks only have one interest. They speak one language, which is money. How much money are we making, and how much power and control do we have over the space? But their influence is dwindling because we're their distribution. Without financial advisors, how do these big networks get clients? And you guys have proven it. Timmy's qualified, but he's still having an impact without the traditional system. So what does that mean? It means that we have other ways of helping people without having to subscribe to the traditional system. Laura does the same thing. If anything, Laura adds certain value to people's lives that the system doesn't even care about adding. Since when does a fact find ask you about your mental well-being? When does a fact find say to you, hey, there's been 2-3 generations where money's not been a thing for you guys, so clearly there are some belief shifts that we have to change first for you to then get better at managing your money. Where's that in a fact find? But the regulation is so heavy on advice on the wrong areas that you have no opportunity to even have these conversations. And with this new wave of people coming in saying, hey, we don't want to subscribe to this whole space, we're going to do it a little bit differently and show that it can be done outside of that, really is a risk to these networks. And the more of us that start coming over to this side, we have the power, we have the influence, and people are not stupid. They know who's there for their best interests and they know who isn't. Yeah. They don't trust these large corporations anymore. They trust people like us.
Yeah.
So I think what's interesting is I can remember years ago when robo advice was kind of coming in, and it was before the AI revolution. It's like, robo advice is going to take over.
My cousin.
Cousin, yeah.
and it's gonna do everything that you could do as an advisor. And we're all sitting there, and we're like,
Do you want to hear a crazy stat about that?
yeah, it's probably going to do that. 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And I was like, is it really going to take my job? Is it really going to do everything that I can do better than me? And I got sucked along with it because that's where the old boys were getting sucked along with it. I'm getting sucked along with that crowd. I'm thinking robo-advice is a big problem. The banks started to introduce it and whatever else. But then I took a step back from it and thought, well, what we should be doing is having the likes of Laura, and what we talk about is talking about the thoughts, the feelings, the behaviours and all that stuff that sits behind money, because that is way more important than stick £250 a month into your pension. It's the behaviours, the feelings, and that's where the real power is. And these guys that are kind of shifting down that direction, worried about robo-advice, you should be worried about it, because that's going to take your job. It's not going to take ours. If anything, our power is going to get bigger and bigger and help more and more people because of the way we do things.
Totally agree with that.
Crazy stat type from the AI.
This is, and I'm not trying to do this to prove I'm human. This is a human. So they launched this robo network, and they came to me and asked me for just a bit of guidance on how they could launch it, and I spoke to them about it.
So your response?
No, my answer was, this isn't going to work. I don't think you should do this, because they put millions of pounds behind it, and they wanted to speak to advisors that were neutral, that aren't in the space of being part of a network, but also are still helping people. So I was neutral, so I gave them my point of view. I was like, this isn't going to work. So they had over 50,000 people sign up to the free version of this robo advice. Guess how many people actually converted into people to pay for that service after they used the robo advice?
0.
Bearing in mind, it was significantly cheaper than any traditional financial advice. 50 people. 50 people out of 50,000 people that signed up used it. So I guess that poses the question to you guys, to bring you in on this conversation. What's your point of view from the other side when you look at the regulated space, you look at the traditional space of providing financial planning? What do you see as the issues and the things that you guys are seeing that isn't being done that you're doing, like Timmy and Laura, if you don't mind me asking. I just want to bring you guys into the conversation.
So what's not being done by the advisory
So
space?
you guys have taken a non-traditional route, which I think is a great way of doing it. What led you to do that?
Just so I'm
versus-
clear, I did the DIP FA.
As in,
But you decided
as in-
not to practice as an
Yeah,
advisor.
practice that way.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm not saying that
Yeah.
the qualification. I'm
Trying to say
saying,
about
Yeah.
no, I'm not.
Tell me about my intelligence.
No, I'm saying what because you guys are doing something
Yeah.
that this space isn't doing
Yes.
that it should be.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So that's what I want to kind of know more about to really wake other advisors up and saying, look, these guys are doing stuff we're not doing. We are not delivering the total service that a client needs, and you guys are doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that I don't actually know how old the financial advice industry is, but it was created during a time when you didn't have as much access to information. Information wasn't democratized like that. And then we're currently going through a digital and technological revolution, which has made information accessible to everyone. So you can't gatekeep information anymore. And I've spoken to people who pay for advice and information that I would just make a video about for free. So I guess that's what's not being done. I just think it's just gatekeeping and charging people for stuff, which you can literally just Google. And
Yeah.
Have you got like specific examples?
I definitely spoke to someone who paid someone to set up a stocks and shares ISA for them. And I was like, why did they? I said it in my head, but I was like,
Just
why
to
did
set
they?
up.
Yeah, they paid money for that.
But isn't that peace of mind, right? Because there's so many platforms. That's like saying, I don't know, being a personal shop, like paying someone to help you pick a outfit. Like there are loads of outfits. You could go to Marks and Spencers. You can go to LV. You could. If it comes to clothes, you could pick clothes. But paying someone to tell you, I think for you, this is the best outfit for you for where you're going. That's what you're paying for, right?
I guess the reason why, yeah, absolutely. When you're not an expert in an area, then it makes more sense for you to like outsource that expertise. But I guess it's like I knew him, and the reason why I was surprised because I was like, I literally would have just told you.
Yeah.
But
I think it's
even-
also hard though because it's like the people behind that. Some people abuse people's vulnerability. That's the issue. And then you have some. It's like, oh, well, this person really just need help. You know, like there is I see both sides. Like paying an expert to give you that peace of mind. Sometimes you do need that, but then it's like there are people who kind of abuse it and take the mick out.
I've been in companies that train you to do that. Like the trainers, they have sales process and talk about like low level and a lot of the time actually it's manipulation of manipulating the facts and the figures and pre-RDR when everything kind of changed, you could a certain bank that I worked for had a brush you'd sit down and you'd go through with the client. You'd have to do that first thing with the client, go through that. And you've already manipulated the answers they're going to output because you're guiding that client to be able to pick an investment. Or it's sales processes and you get sales skills. You're not getting advice skills.
Yeah.
Unlike it's the whole gatekeeping of information.
Smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was the point I was making to you guys is that when all you're charging for. So for me personally, I think look, there's going to be value in financial advice at all times for certain people. For example, if you're opening a stocks and shares ISA with 100 quid versus if you're opening it with, you can't, but like an example is if you've got 200k to invest, there's a difference.
Yes.
You then want to use an advisor, and that's where it's right. But your point is that these are people that are being charged for a service that they could have got for free elsewhere and got a similar outcome. And I totally agree with that. And I think that's what the financial advice space is waking up to, and individuals within that are waking up to it. That we're actually overcharging for the value we deliver in certain spaces as a whole. And in the past, you got away with that because there were no alternatives. If you either went to a financial advisor, we did nothing, or you went to a financial advisor, or you had to try and figure it out with all the complicated stuff yourself with no support. But then other people are coming in and saying, well, we're just going to provide that information as content and value for free. We have our own type of services that will help you, will guide you to do that because you need that and value that guidance. But we're going to add more value to what financial planning is, redefining what financial planning is. We're going to help you with your psychology.
Yeah.
We're going to help you with poor habits that you've created. We're going to help you with ensuring that you stay on track because it's easy to fall off track. We're just like you. We're going through the same process. I'm also someone that is young and trying to, not using me as an example, in general, is relatable, you know. So that's what I think's changing is you're adding an extra layer of value to the space that is now scaring financial advisors that are not providing that value, and probably can't.
Yeah.
Because a 60-year-old can't turn around and be like, yeah, it must be hard to, going out for not saying they don't, but going out for drinks on the weekend to budget. It's like,
I think for me, like answering your question on like that side of it, financial advice aside, minus the fact that I've always been interested in like psychology and the way that people behave, and like I'm very much like into emotions and you know, like the way that people's behaviors, people's habits, I always have been. And I think because I'm very much a big believer in like the way that we live our lives should be focused around like joy and presence and like what makes us happy. And like, you know, some of my favourite things are like laughing and dancing. You don't have to pay for that. So with that side of things, then when just obviously generally having an interest in money, but like really understanding just how emotional money is and seeing like the impact that I could have when I started talking about it online, and I was able to talk about emotional and psychological things, but just applied to money as well. Because anything that I talk about, technically you could apply to non-money as well, like all other elements of life. So I think for me, seeing it, it's kind of like, I know for a fact that people aren't getting that in as much in the advice space. And I feel for me that it like makes the biggest difference. Like the things that the way that I've seen people's lives change from them changing their emotions behind it. And like, so for example, I went on a podcast with 2 lawyers, really successful, like made a lot of money. They were in their like 40s or 50s. And I come in and I did my talk and I was doing my thing, and they were both sat there. And like at one point it just went dead silent, and I was like, oh, I've killed the vibe. But they were like, oh my God, I'm just having moments where I've realised I've gone through my entire life spending all this money, buying all these things, thinking it'd make me happy. Obviously being a lawyer is really demanding. And, you know, in their 40s and 50s, they're having moments of acknowledging the emotion that sat behind that, and kind of did like a bit of live financial coaching, which I loved. And I think the impact that side of it has, is like, you can't ignore that. You can't ignore that for much longer. Like, and I do hope that it kind of like continues to more people like get involved with that. But yeah, I don't know. For me, it's like personal interest, but as well as also seeing the transformation that it actually has in people. Like we said, because money isn't real, but our emotions are.
The hard thing about that, and I love everything that you do, is if you'd kind of come up with that idea as part of a financial advice network, that would have been squashed. Somebody would have kind of said, Laura, you cannot do that.
But that's because they can't monetize it. They haven't figured out how, but you guys have.
Exactly. But like,
I can't monetize. That's the reason they can't monetize.
That's why you've carved your own path and your own way of doing it by doing it that way, and having those culture, and there's some incredible coaches out there do that. And that's where the future of the industry lies. It's not in this old boys club, but those corporates would have just squashed that, so you can't do that.
Yeah, and when I did my financial coaching qualification, I talked about, like, should I get regulated? Should I do... And I am doing my diploma now, but more for the knowledge than for the actual practicing. But at the time, someone was like, do not get regulated because you won't be able to do all this stuff. And I was like, well, this is my favourite bit. Like, I couldn't believe that the two didn't merge together. So, totally chose that path because I think it has the biggest impact.
It's huge.
I think also the technology, right? I think we've seen, like... we've seen Uber, which is basically having your own driver. We've seen Uber Eats, is basically having like a personal chef. It's going to get to the point where these ideas for the mass market with the right technology will mean everyone can get access to it.
Yeah.
Like when we talk about these financial advisors, I've been there. Like I know what it's like. You've got 150 people who are all affluent. You go to their house. You're in a bubble. A lot of financial advisors are broke because they forget they're not the ones with the money. Do you know what I mean? If I spend my life going to people, they've got big houses, they've got lovely cars, and I'm gonna have to figure I need a big house. I'm gonna need a nice car. So, but you're not making the money that your clients are making.
Yeah.
But you take your value from being in the same place as them. So now you live in a world where you have these 150 people, and you now just try and camouflage yourself like we all belong. Now they invite you to weddings. They invite you to flights. Flights you can't afford. You ain't got flight money. You understand? You're getting 0.5. You ain't. It's not paying for that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But in your head, you're in this world, and so what's going to happen is that as the technology comes, we're going to have that mass market financial advice where people can get access to financial advice, whether that be, and it's likely to be through AI, where people can speak to someone and get that support, and not have it through an app, and not need to necessarily go for a financial advisor, but get a tailored plan, because that's what you really want.
Yeah.
As much as you talk about, none of my clients have ever wanted a pension or an ISA. but they definitely want to retire and want to live comfortably. And so for me, as a financial advisor, especially one of the things I hate in the bank, I know what I'm going to sell you. I've only got 3 products.
Yeah.
I've got a pension, an ISA, and life insurance. This is what I've got in my. Whereas now I'm independent. I work with mortgage brokers. I work with property experts. I work with people who help you buy a business. I'm free to actually do more holistic stuff than these people that say they're holistic, but actually you're holistic on only the products that you're regulated to make money from. Whereas I'm much more freer than that. So I feel like we're getting to the point where we will have that mass market, and things like what you do will be in an app. Mm-hmm. Like, it will be in an app. You will be able to speak to you in an app, giving you that, going through the thought process of what you're doing and so forth, to help you understand that a lot of the decisions you make, some of the times when I speak to clients, you don't need me, you need a therapist.
Mm. Yeah.
The trauma that you're going through is because no matter what I tell you, you're going to get a trigger and you're going to go back to... Yeah. So until you sort that out, there's no point us building a plan on pensions, investments, save for your LISA, to save for your property. You're going to spend it all because you've got daddy issues. So let's go sort those stuff out first. Do you know what I mean? And that's where we need to get to.
And I totally agree with that. And I feel like the space is becoming a more value... I think financial advice over time has become so diluted that all you are, as a lot of financial advisors, a salesperson for a network. You're just like St. James's Place, you just sell St. James's Place, but you're a salesperson. You're not a financial advisor. You don't give advice. You just put people into products. But what's happening now, I think the value of, and I don't like the titles of financial advisor, financial coach. I think it dilutes it. I think ultimately you're just someone that's there to help someone better manage their money. That's what you are. So I think now the value of a financial advisor, financial coach is increasing, because ultimately each person has an area and their own story of why they got into a specific space, and they overcame their own challenge within that. So now they can help others who are going through the same challenge. So I think what we're going to see is more niched style financial planners. So you're going to have Laura, the financial planner, that can help people identify the real reasons why they're not making progress, no matter how much money you have or don't have. The lawyers being an example. You're going to have Timmy, who's going to be able to help people integrate AI into helping with their finances. You're going to have Ian, who is going to help maybe financial advisors manage their money, because you've been there as a financial advisor and had those challenges. You're going to have Emmanuel, who's going to help people with daddy issues overcome their finances. So we're going to get more granular, and that's going to help people in a much deeper way. So you're going to have your own certain niches, and then ultimately people are going to get much better targeted, tailored guidance to make real change in their finances. So I think that's what's going to happen, and we're creating a space now where each person can really express where their value comes from as an advisor.
But isn't it such a shame, though? And I completely agree with what you said. Isn't it such a shame that when you look at these big boys, and you've mentioned the names there that have such an impact and such an influence on the whole, such a massive amount of people, like
losing market share,
how we can only have such a relatively small impact on that small community, but at the same time we can only do what we can do.
I disagree.
Yeah, I disagree as well. I don't think we realise, and I've been on the other side of it now. I'm not part of any individual network, similar to Emmanuel, and I didn't realise just how much influence we do have. So, and also, if you look at it, I love stats, I love numbers, and sometimes it's easy to make emotional conclusions, but then when you look at the numbers, sometimes like, actually these numbers contradict what I think. So when you look at the market shares of these big players, they're diminishing. They are losing market share.
Right.
People are exiting the whole financial advice landscape as it is anyway, and using individuals like Laura, like, you know, money's seeping out of those places and going elsewhere, which should happen, I think.
Yeah.
So they're losing market share. Also, influence. In the past, influence was who you know, right? In the past, there was this, maybe 50 years ago, to get financial advice, you'd need to know a stockbroker. You'd need to have a mate that knew a financial advisor. It was gatekept a lot. Now, you've got social media. That's where most people's attention is. And these networks aren't there. They're not capturing people's attention where it is. We are. People that have influence in those spaces are able to capture that attention. So arguably, we have more of an impact on where this industry goes than the networks do. They know this. And that's why you're seeing like these sinister things like private equity coming in and chucking loads of money to consolidate this market, to give them more control and power. But the regulators come out recently and said, we're now going to make sure that any private equity that comes into the financial advice space has to be signed off by us as a regulator. And can go back to any business that's ever been sold in the space. And if we don't think it was ethical, then we can not only reverse that sale, we can take criminal proceedings against individuals.
Citizens arrest.
We started off with topics, and then we said we'd do the industry chat towards the end, which I kind of feel like we've gone into. So I'm going to go for the next topic.
Yeah. Good clap.
Next question. And this one's going to be a stonker.
I really can feel it.
Live in the UK or live abroad?
I'm halfway out already, man. The UK is bad vibes, man. It's just, I love the people. I love where I've grown up. I love like the people I know and the people I meet. I love going around the country and helping people. But the system just doesn't make sense. It's like, I've come from poverty. I'm finally doing good. And it's like, I don't feel the difference. And that shouldn't be the case. Like, as hard as I work, as much money as I make, I should be able to feel the difference and live a life like I'm different. But I just feel like I make more money, I pay more tax, there's more ways you're taking it away from me, I have less time, so now I have to choose to make less money so I can get some time back. It just doesn't make sense. And it's like, as a parent, especially as a parent, go to work, you do your work, you finish work, you come home, you still have to cook, clean, you still have to do your kids' homework. Like, by the time I get to rest, it's already 9:30, 10 o'clock. And then I need to go to bed because I've got to wake up in the morning. So actually, what am I working for? Whereas there are other countries you can go to, and like, you know, you go to work, when you finish, you can have people that can help and support with childcare and with other things. So you get your time back. And I think, you know, the tax system here, and then even like for me, like even this whole, you know, we got a new government come in, and what's the first thing they do? Let's take money off the gas off the older people, and you know, and yet we still haven't had a windfall tax for all the energy money that these men have made for all these years, and you're meant to be for the people. So if for the people takes from the poor to give to more poor people, then it just doesn't make sense what we're doing here.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm going to use a stat again. I saw an interesting stat about the UK that if you took London and everything it contributes to GDP outside of the equation, the UK would fall outside of the top 25 wealthy countries in the world, and we'd actually be a country in poverty.
That doesn't surprise me.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
So
Wow.
It's insane. I personally have felt like this for a while. I feel like the culture here already has, even since I was growing up, I remember it was a hustle culture, which is like work, and there's not really much else outside of that. But I feel like that's been exasperated. And I've experienced other places all over the world, and you just feel like, I can't describe it until you experience it, but the best way I can describe it is you work to live rather than live to work. That's the best description I've heard of it, and it's so true when you go to these other places. And then when you're doing your work, it feels worth it because of what you get back for it. Whereas here it's like, as you've said, for a lot of people, they will work all the hours available just to get by. The trade does not feel worth it. Whereas if you had little things like, okay, well, I'll work long hours, but at the end of it, you know, I get to go out and experience good weather. I get to experience a good community. Yeah, I get to experience a good culture. And I personally think, and I'm not knocking the UK, I was born here, I love it, it feels like home to me. But I just feel like the whole culture, the attitude, the way people treat each other, how we feel about each other, it just feels a lot more negative than it used to be. So I feel like it's not the greatest of places to be.
I think that wealth inequality's got a massive part of it, hasn't it? The us and them mentality. That's the kind of thing. Like, I think with the transition of governments, everybody was like, "Oh, we need to change. We need to change. Something's got to shift. We're sick of the Tories, the PPE scandal. They're just so out of touch." Countless examples. But I remember sitting back and kind of sitting in my office and just sitting thinking, well, in the grand scheme of things, are they not going to make a difference to anybody? In the grand scheme of things, in 10 years' time, am I going to look back and say, this was the start of the revolution? And it was never going to be the case. It was never going to be let's redistribute the wealth and let's kind of help the poor and all that, because that doesn't work. And it's the whole political system in the UK, I think, is fundamentally flawed. I learned a little bit about it at school. I'm not an expert by any means, but when you've got the Houses of Parliament and then you've got the Houses of Lords above that have got to pass laws, and these are incredibly wealthy people, why would they ever pass anything that's going to damage themselves? That means that they pay more tax, or that they could distribute that further down the line, because the reality is these guys are sat on their country pals and their country estates on a weekend when you've got like working class families out there working 7 days a week to just to make ends meet.
I was to say, if they have all this money, why don't they make it harder?
I'm just saying.
That's a whole different topic.
No, joking, I'm joking.
I'll get into that if you want.
Joking. No, I agree with both of what all of you said. For me, like, definitely outside of the UK, partly because of weather, but also something to add to that is, like, with this idea of hustle culture and, like, work really hard, you know, like, put all your time and effort into X, Y, and Z. But yet in the UK, there is a massive attitude of, like, you're bragging, you need to be humble, like, you shouldn't be going after money. Wanting money is, like, greedy. Don't talk about your accolades. But if we compare it, and America has its flaws, and I'm not saying I want to move to America because I don't, but if we take the attitudes of the people there, because of the whole American dream, it's like, shout about it, sis, like, tell us what awards have you won, like, get up, go for the money. And even just that energy alone, I think, lends itself more to, like, okay, well, at least I can do the hard work and then talk about it and share it, and we can uplift each other. In the UK, you don't have that, which I think sucks. So
That's a really good point.
that's what I think about that.
Yeah, I think, well, to put a downer on the conversation, I do think that Brexit might be like the final nail in the coffin.
It definitely was
for the country, and I would define that by saying it's very difficult to see how the things that Brexit made worse will get better. Because I actually went down. I went on YouTube and I watched, like, videos from that time of, like, Nigel Farage speaking European Parliament and, like, people's reaction to leaving and stuff. And there was a lot of smugness from the UK at that time. And I wouldn't be surprised if there were people, like, in the background just going, let's just make sure that that doesn't work for them so that no one else does this. And yeah, I think we live in a more globalized world now, and it makes very little sense isolating yourself from everyone else. That's the one thing I'd say. But on the other hand, the UK does have a track record of striking out on its own and actually making it work. Like, whether that's not joining the euro or creating a whole arm of Christianity just so a monarch can get a divorce. Like, there have been things that the country's done which has run counter to what everyone else has done, and it has made good on it. But what I will say is, for something as big as Brexit, if we don't see the positive outcomes from it in our lifetimes, then it wasn't really worth it as a decision. I want to stay. I've lived in the UK my whole life. Pretty much every good thing that's ever happened to me has happened to me here, but the country does not make it easy to want to stay.
I also think it's hard, like, 'cause I'm the same, like, oh, you know, all my family are here. I don't imagine any of my family moving outside of the UK. It would be like me, like, even now, I'm like the older sister in the family. She's the one that lives in London. She runs a business. She's different to us, but I'm also out traveling all the time. And I think for me as an individual, like, the lifestyle of being, and it's not like being anti-UK, it's more being, like, pro-world and, like, wanting to see everything and, like, traveling around. So it's more that energy, but that lends itself more to, like, being a digi-nomad than it does, like, necessarily. If you ask me right now, like, pick a country outside of the UK that you'd want to live in, I'd be like, oh, I actually don't know the answer to that. It's more like I'd like to see stuff, so it's harder to say. Whereas I'm sure if and when I have a family and children, that's something I'd look at more seriously.
Would you pick the UK, though? Like, if that was one of those countries where, like, if you could pick anywhere in the world, level playing field, would you pick to live in the UK?
I feel like if you right now, I'd say no, but not because I have an alternative that I'm really strong on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, it would be this country. I do think I would end up finding a better alternative, but I couldn't tell you what that is now because I haven't looked into it enough. But what I do know is I'm an outdoorsy girly. I'm a beach girly. I love the sun. I love being in the mountains. Like, and as beautiful as the UK is in some places, the weather and the beaches and the lifestyle doesn't lend itself to that. Like, you don't just, like, finish work and then go sit on the beach, unless you live in Cornwall.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the UK's got pluses, you know, in regards to, I feel like my story, I couldn't be where I am today in a lot of other places. You know, the UK gives you an opportunity. If you're hungry and you got drive, you can get the opportunity, you can win, and so forth to a certain degree. So it's definitely there. And also in regards to mixing, you know, if you come from anywhere in the world, there's a place in the UK where you'll find people from that same place, like people that will speak your language, people that, if whatever food you want to eat, you'll find it. Do you know what I mean? But I just feel like when we think about healthcare, it's not the best. When you think about schools, like, as a parent, Like, we're looking at even private schools. It's not that great. Like, the environment in itself, the way the education, what they're teaching them, the bullying, the way they deal with stuff. Like, we're still talking about, whether young black people can wear afros to school, whether that is okay or not. In 2024, we still have when you really deep what's happening, it's like, as progressive as we've come, there are just some things that are still so archaic, and it's like they don't want to let certain things go. And so for me, it's a case of, as a parent, like raising my children, do I want to bring them up in a place that wants to limit them and say, yes, you can be successful, but only so much. And then when you do become successful, how dare you celebrate it in public? You must keep it quiet and share it only in our WhatsApp groups. Like, this is not the life that I feel like we should live. Why? I have clients who are embarrassed to be wealthy, and it's like, no, you worked really hard, and you didn't come from a privileged background. But when you go outside, everyone has to pretend like they're poor. If we're all poor, who's driving these cars? I've been to Chelsea. Who owns this stuff?
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? But we all have to pretend like nobody's doing well and nobody's making any money just because, there are poor people and we don't want them to feel bad, but we don't want to help them. Last point for me, but just the NHS in general, like, we literally clapped the NHS. We went outside our doors and clapped for them, and still we fought them for 2 years to give them a pay rise.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable when you really think about it, that we would clap them, but ministers and those in parliament, they got their pay rise straight away. And it's like, actually, we live in a country where teachers are earning pittance. Teachers are going to food banks. These are some of the most important people in our country, and you've got to go to a food bank.
Yeah. So the pandemic was it was a time period when we actually became a bit more human-centric as a society, which is when we went into lockdown and we were forced to acknowledge who actually kept the country moving.
Yeah.
And then I thought it would stick, and then we came out of lockdown, and then everyone just forgot and just went back to normal. We desperately need to become a more human-centric society, and people need to be able to afford to live here. Because if you actually, this is something I've been researching but haven't shared in content because I wasn't sure how to say it. But basically, if you look at the population of the UK born population is actually decreasing because it's too expensive to have children and to live here. The control group for that's actually the white British share of the population is actually falling compared to 20 years ago. It's like at 1.2 million people fewer. The non-white British share is increasing, but that's because of immigration. So you can use the white British portion as like what's actually truly happening here. And I just think it's really sad. Like a generation ago, you could go to school, go to uni, get on the property ladder, start a family, and now you're having to look at a spreadsheet to see if you can even do any of those things. And the most important thing in a country isn't money. It's like it's always been its people. It's always been like the society, and I think we've lost that.
Do you think it's reversible? Because I'm quite pessimistic about that. If I look at just the stats and history, I don't think it's reversible.
Look, so we literally have a generation called the baby boomers. So things like birth rates and populations don't happen in a straight line. They do fluctuate, but what we do have is over the past 50 years, a long-term trend of sub-replacement rate, like birth rate in this country.
So I meant in general about the economy and being an affordable place for people
being
to be.
affordable.
Do you think the UK is going to be able to reverse that?
What I would like to see is our leaders to basically move away from all the being the world's policeman type stuff. Just pull out of all the, like, we should be outraged every time we go on TV and just see that we bombed some random country, because that all costs money. And then we pay the asylum bill when the people whose countries are messed up then decide to come here. And we should just focus purely on the citizens. So no, we shouldn't be scrapping the winter fuel payments. We shouldn't be scrapping the 2-child benefit cap. We should be introducing stuff that actually makes it easier to live here and more affordable to live here.
I totally agree. I had a look at some of the policies that they could have made and generated, because they have a £22 billion deficit. Some of the policies that they could have made, which really would have been targeting the ultra-rich and wouldn't have impacted their standard of living whatsoever, could have generated 3 times the revenue for the country than all other tax cuts they make on the middle and the lower class. So people say there isn't one thing that could be done to solve this, but there actually is.
Yeah.
If there's one way you can have more leverage and change in reversing the economic issues in the UK than all of the others that they're currently doing combined, but they just don't do it. And again, that I think those are deeper issues of corruption and who actually has power and influence.
Yeah.
Because we go around in circles. We're like, well, you shouldn't cut this tax rate, or you should help the NHS. You shouldn't do. And I totally agree with all of that. But all of those changes shouldn't be one or the other. It should be none of them, because all of those combined don't generate as much revenue as just targeting the ultra wealthy generates all the revenue you need. But they make us argue and say, well, we should focus on immigration, or we should focus on the NHS, we should focus on that. But those things, like I said, combined are not going to have the same impact. Yeah. So we're all divided against each other.
Yeah, the immigration thing is such a massive distraction as well.
It's so hard to get. It is so hard to share that, because everything, like you said, is emotion based, right? So if everyone is coming from a place of emotion, it's really hard to just sit people down and say, look, here are the numbers, here's the logic. We're all arguing amongst each other. And none of us are really the problem here.
And the media has a part to play in this as well, because like my first job was in PR, so I was in some cases responsible for the things that we would see in newspapers, but they throw these like massive numbers at you to scare you. But it's like, if you look at the illegal immigration thing, the incidence rate in this country is like 2% of the population. So if the healthcare system is collapsing because of 2% of the population, then that's a problem with the system, not with the people in the country. But people don't want to hear that, because, as you say, the emotional thing.
Yeah, but I think also even simple things like university. When I went to university, it was like £1,000. Like, and what was the average salary you come out of uni was what, 20, 25, 30 grand to start off with. Well, now uni's like 50 grand, and the average salary you come out with is like 30, 35 grand. So what are they actually, what's the value that they're adding for the extra £49,000 that it now costs to go uni that it did like 20 years ago?
With very little hope of ever paying the student loan back now because of the salaries.
And they added interest on top. You have to follow the money. Where's everyone's spending more, right? But someone's financial loss is someone's financial gain. This is all going somewhere. So if you follow the money, I remember that's the first thing my dad ever taught me about money is like, if you want to know answers, follow the money. So if you look at where's all this money going, it all seems to be going to the same place. It's taken away from the working class, the middle class through inflation, and it's going to those right at the top who own the majority stakes in these businesses, but they're seen as governments. So that's where the answer is. And that's why I'm pessimistic about it, because the amount of control, power and influence is only increasing on that side while we're sort of...
I mean, I've heard people talk about like a net wealth tax, because like the reason why they don't tax the most wealthy is because they'll just take their money and go elsewhere. So there does seem to be a need for global cooperation around a net wealth tax. I've always found it very interesting how people are like, oh, you can't do a net wealth tax. It's like, well, you pay interest on debt. Like, the bank will calculate what your credit card balance is every day, and then we'll send you a bill at the end. So why can't you do that with assets?
Or at least have caps on how much wealth that you can accumulate, which again is obviously you do that through taxes, but it's like if you exceed X amount of properties in places that are notoriously residential and need to be provided for those that won't have housing, instead of it, there's a cap on how many of those houses can be bought by investors. So it's being more mindful of who owns the assets and who that's being stripped away from if they do.
I just think people just don't have a heart. We're seeing that, for example,
capitalism's heartless, isn't
people that have benefited from the right to buy scheme are now the ones trying to scrap the right to buy scheme in Parliament.
Yeah.
Like, you've literally bought your house, your first house was bought using this scheme that you now want to scrap for other people to be able to use. And it's like, if we continue to have a society where we only think about us in the moment, so, we see, people in Parliament talking about immigration, and they are immigrants who have benefited from it. You wouldn't even have your job if immigration didn't give you an opportunity, but now you're like, no more immigrants. And if we always have that attitude where as long as it doesn't affect me in where I'm at today, I'm ready to be opposed from it. I think we're always gonna have a problem, and so we have to. This is why we have to fight back, and we have to. And this is why it was so great to have us all here and have our impact and so forth to see what we can do within financial services, because that's the little that we have any influence over.
Yeah.
But to try and make people understand that we have to stop just focusing on how I feed my family.
Yeah.
Because that's what they want us to do, right? Is to focus on how do you feed your family. If my only concern is how I feed my family, I don't care what happens to everyone else. And if we all have that mentality, the people who control everything will win. But when I start to say no, I don't just want to feed my. I want to make sure Timmy's family and Laura's family and Ian's family and Naz's family. I want to make sure all of their families are good. All of a sudden, those at the top are like, what do we do now?
And one positive to add to that is shifting the pendulum the other way, is in the past, the most influential way you can change the narrative and impact people is through the media, right? Yeah. That is the way that you have notoriously been able to impact what people do, is what you share with them. And in the past, the media was a handful of people. People like Rupert Murdoch owned all the media outlets. So the only way you could get your message across, or you could have an influence, or you could get to the masses, is through these channels of the basically gate-kept information. Now that pendulum's swinging, where anyone can pick up their device and share media and have an input and have an influence. And not only that, but the way people consume media now is moving away from television, it's moving away from the mass media and more into social media influencers or individuals that people know that they can trust. So that is probably the biggest opportunity we've ever had, is that if you have a voice, if you have an opinion, if you have things that you want to share and you want to have impact beyond just you and your family, then start speaking these truths and start sharing them, and that then swings the pendulum to get people to act.
I completely agree with that. The final thing that we need to battle is just the algorithms.
Tell them, Tim.
Yeah.
But that's where Elon Musk helped, because he changed that. I don't know if you've noticed what's happened recently, because he made X, which again is the Wild West at the moment. He removed a lot of the stuff that would be filtered in the past, because he said freedom of speech completely on these apps. So Meta and other places, I don't know if they've done this silently, where they've started reversing and backtracking on censorship.
Okay.
Even Mark Zuckerberg came out the other day and said, we got it wrong. We censored too much. So we're now backtracking.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you'll notice slight things like Adam Mosseri, who is the CEO of Instagram. Look at the way he posts content now. He's more controversial.
Yeah.
He told someone to shut the fuck up the other day on a post
Casual.
in jest, but he would never have said that 2 months ago. And all the comments beneath it were like, I thought you guys were like about censorship, etc. So it only takes one person that has huge influence, and it's happened in history. You've got someone that surprises you, and in this day and age, it looks to be Elon Musk. I don't know whether he's trustworthy or not, but he's done a big thing where he's removed censorship on X, and that is a big competitor to Meta, and they've now started repealing and going back on this. So I totally agree with your point.
I was agreeing with you. I was just saying that, like with the algorithms, it's still a person in control of the information that's being shared. And like remembering like COVID, like even if your post had like COVID like in the image, it would come up with the COVID disclaimer.
Yeah.
So it's like reading the screen and
So
stuff.
does it now?
Does it?
On TikTok.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wonder if maybe someone will come along with like an open source type social network where the information is disseminated in
Totally.
a fairer way.
And I
look,
also
sorry, go on,
There you
Laura,
go.
I interrupted you.
No, you go.
The last thing I'll say, because I've said loads, I'll leave you guys to say. One thing is that we're in finance and we're trying to have our influence in the finance space, and we can, but there will be other people that have the same beliefs and feel the same way about us in other spaces, one being tech. So you'll have people that come out there and say, I totally think that there should be more freedom of speech. I work in tech, so I'm going to put my neck out and try and build tech that allows people to speak more freely. For example, like Rumble. Rumble now is, I don't know if you know about it, it's completely uncensored. It allows people to talk completely freely. Patreon, which actually is, the CEO talks about the algorithm. He's like, we've lost followers. People used to go on platforms and they would be able to listen to the people they wanted to through followers. He's like, we don't have that anymore. You're at the mercy of the algorithm. We've built a whole different platform that is focused on the creator to the extent where you can have subscriptions, so people only see what you post if that's what they want to see. So I think it's a revolution happening in every space. Ours just happens to be finance, which is a big thing. But we've got to trust that there's other people that might see what we're doing and think, you know what, I can do this, but from this angle of tech, and that's what shifts the pendulum. Yeah, sorry, Laura, I interrupted you.
No, I was just going to say, touching on what you said a minute ago about like this idea of you can't just want to feed your own family, you have to want to, like, you can say you want to support everyone. The downside, I think, to like social media, and I'm obviously a big fan of it, but like the downside is like because anybody can say anything, you also have the people out there who continue to push the narrative of like, you go get what you want, you can make money anyway. So it's like this, I feel like we're in like a sticky in between point where it's like more people, you know, like freedom of speech, say what you want, we can start to like club together. But there's still always going to be people like the Andrew Tates of the world that say stuff that people then listen to and still just go, well, I just want to feed myself. So it's like this in-between bit, do you know what I mean? Where it's like, we can't stop that. We can't like say freedom of speech, but only for the people who believe in what we say. Yeah. That's the hard thing.
Only for the nice guys. Yeah.
Only for the nice guys.
Freedom of speech for everyone.
Yeah.
I
agree with that.
What's next? Go on to.
I think we've got time for one more.
One more.
Do one more.
Okay, it's a nice one to end on. Doing what you love versus making money.
Yeah.
I think, for me at least, it's a straightforward one, and this is only on my personal experience. I found that when I do what I love and focus on that, because it's something I enjoy, I'm naturally going to want to spend more time on it and want to improve it. I've got an interest in it. Generally, for me, it's work that I've ended up making more money when I focused on things that I love doing. So I think money becomes the delayed response to doing what you love if you do it for long enough.
I agree in the content of not picking, and I agree with that concept. But I think if you are like looking at the two, I'm a big believer of always, if we assume that everybody has their basic needs met, what you love every single time, because there are more people in the world that have less money but are at least doing things that bring them joy and are therefore happy than there are people that have a lot of money and are happy. Like money, it's that whole thing of like, obviously money doesn't create happiness, and we're associating like what you love with happiness, but the two do go hand in hand. And I think there is a life worth living in the short and in the long run is through doing things that bring you joy, and that's going to look different for everybody. For some people they will be able to make money, for some people they won't, but I think in the end, which backs up everything we've been saying throughout this whole thing about money being made up, and you know, doing what you love should triumph and win over every time. And I think I take that, like, for me personally, because even, you know, I'm in that point in my business where I'm like, I'm still in the start, I'm still in the first 5 years, like, first 10 years, like, the love still has to kind of, like, reign for me to continue doing this. And I see, like, I'm in it for the long run, so I hope that, you know, financially I'll be rewarded in the long run. But right now, if I was doing it purely just for money, I'd have dropped out a while ago, but I'm not. I'm doing it because I love, and I know for a fact, if you said, Laura, you're going to be on this salary for the rest of your life, but you get to continue to do it, right now I'd say, all right, let's go. That's just my opinion.
I'm going to caveat my bit by saying that I'm obviously talking from a position of incredible privilege to be able to kind of sit here and have these conversations, because I think there's a lot of people just don't have the option of being able to do what they love because they need to pay their bills, they need to get food on the table, they need to keep the wolf from the door and do 2, 3, 4 jobs, and we all know people that do that. I just can't afford to do that, and I think that's something that needs to be addressed. And I said it a couple of times today. Like, for me, I got into financial services by accident, and it was kind of needed a job, wanted to get into it, kind of thought it was okay. I got sucked in by the whole money piece of you can earn X, and every single recruiter that you ever spoke to, first thing they kind of say from the start is, oh, your on-target earnings are going to be 120 grand a year. Great. Now, the reality of it is, in that space, when you go into that new company, that's like the top 2% of earners. You've got absolutely naffle chance of getting there, but you get sucked in by it. So then you get sucked along by it, and it's like, oh, well, this guy's got a Mercedes, I'm going to have a Mercedes, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And it was only when I've come out of the kind of the corporate space and kind of doing it on my own, I've started to love what I've been doing. And I started to love what I've been doing by not doing all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And by focusing on like the coaching side of things and focusing on what the relationship with money and behaviours and all that kind of stuff. But I'm fortunate enough now where I've built the business up enough, I can outsource the rest and give the stuff. So all I can concentrate on is the things that I really love. And it's the dealing with people, it's doing stuff like this. It's having an impact, like we kind of said when we first got together. But a lot of people just have to be a slave to that 9 to 5 for a very, very long period of time just to survive, and that's tough.
I don't know. I agree and disagree with you on that. I don't think people have to be. I think people choose to be. I think that how many people, when I speak to people, how many of them are actually looking for the thing that they love? Or how many of them are just going with what they've been told to do, which is grow up, get a job, pay your bills, and be responsible. That's the message you get your whole life. And so I feel like, because I do feel like I've swallowed, like the Matrix, I feel like I've lived that. I feel like I've taken that pill and I just see the world in such a different way. So when I meet people and I talk to them, they start to see, oh no, actually, I've just been in the Matrix. I've just literally been told to see the world like this. And so, like, I did one of the shows and the ladies, they literally were struggling. And within a few days of spending time with them, they don't have to struggle anymore. And it's literally just, and it's not that nothing rocket science. I just told them she's a cook. I said, oh, have you thought about cooking for people in your local area? Actually, I do cook for them, but I never thought to charge. I said, why not charge? Now she can go on holiday. Do you know what I mean? It's not, but if no one's ever told you that this is a possibility, you would never think to do it. And so I feel like there are so many, I get it, there are jobs that you have to do. There are times that you have to do whatever you have to do. Like I've been made redundant, I've took jobs, I hated the job, but I know I've got to feed my family, I've got to do it. But I always understood that the focus is on getting to what I want to be doing. I just think a lot of people don't know what they want to be doing. And so that's why they don't do what they love. And remember, doing what you love doesn't necessarily mean that you stop having to do work. You might do both. You might work 3 days a week, 4 days a week doing something that you don't enjoy, but then you've got 2 or 3 other days that you can do what you actually enjoy and get that balance. So there's the balance of the two. For me, like, I would always choose to do what I love over money. And not only just for doing the work, but for the people I meet. Like when I see Timmy's content, do you know how much I enjoy Timmy's content? Because I know what he's going through. Because I know that, like, the first time Timmy ever amazed me was the celebration box. He always, like, I've had celebration so much, I've never thought about it from a point of stocks. Do you understand? The first time he ever explained that, I saw that video, I said, that's my guy. This is someone I can relate to. I don't even like Get Ready With Me. I watch Laura's Get Ready With Me. I will sit there while she's putting on her makeup and she's talking about, and I hate this type of stuff. I hate it. But I will sit there and look because I love what I do. So anyone that does what I love, I can connect to.
Yeah.
So now we're here in a room, we're all strangers from different parts of the country. But this one thing that we love, that we're passionate about, means that we can sit here and talk for days on end. There's so many people that because they don't know what they love, they don't get this opportunity. Like, doing what you love isn't just about making money. It's the fact that now you attract the people, the types of people in your life. You attract the types of places that you go, the types of conversations that you have. You are energized. Like, I learn from you guys every single day. Abs, I love your content, full of facts. I hate facts. But your facts make sense to me because you're talking about what I love. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
When you love something, it's beyond just money. It's now, I see the world in a whole different way. To the point where my algorithm, I tell my wife, what you see on social media and what I see on social media are completely different. Because I see you guys. I see people that are doing what I love and get inspiration every single day. I don't care what Kanye West's children's names are. I don't care. I just struggle to remember I've got 4 kids, I struggle to remember their names. I call one the other name all the time. Do you understand? Like, for me, doing what you love means that you walk in the world in a different way. And that's what I hope. Whenever I meet my clients, that's the number one thing I want to give them. I always tell them, forget the money. I want to help you build a plan to live life on your own terms, in the way you want to live life. And I think that's the gift that we get to do with finances.
That was a whole
Amen.
speech itself.
Yeah.
I don't even feel like
That's
I
really
can
good.
follow that.
Yeah, I was going to say, please add.
Yeah, definitely team do what you love, because you're gonna go through difficult times, and it's the love that you have for the thing that's gonna keep you going. But, and I think Ian, you made this point, if you just need to make money, then then I would invert it and I would say loving what you do becomes important.
Yeah.
Because you may not love the thing, but then maybe you'll like your colleagues, or there's like certain areas of the work that you're doing that you can fall in love with. And you can use that to get your money up, and then that'll give you the freedom to actually focus on what you love to do. But I agree with all points made.
And can I just quickly add to that?
Yeah.
There's a book called Big Magic by Liz Gilbert. She talks about this concept of like when you do what you love, there's always like you're basically choosing your shit sandwich. So like no matter what job you like, if we're talking about jobs, there's always going to be a part of it that you don't like. Like there's parts of, I'm sure we could all say it, and obviously it gets to a point when you make more money, you can delegate, like that's further down the line, but on a whole, it's not like so black and white as being 100% this or 100% that. So I think it's like you always take that into consideration, but I think too many people don't even try and look for what they love or what they might love or give themselves those options because they're already like, well, so-and-so's 20 and they're already doing this, and this, and I should be doing this, and that comparison thing stops you even thinking about what you might love, because it's maybe too out there, you haven't even explored it. And I think that's the stuff that's not like cultivated from like, depending on your family, but like in school and stuff like that. So I think it's really important for people to even consider it.
It's a Victorian school system, isn't it? That's the thing. It's built for
It's
work. It's
designed
built for workers. It's not built for
workers.
entrepreneurs and kind of people, free thinkers. It just doesn't exist. Like I went to a school. I went to like a confession time. I went to private school, and it was kind of like you had to be this way, and any way outside of that box, you were just completely ridiculed. And I kind of came from I was lucky enough. I got 13 GCSEs, grade A to C. I'm not showing off, and I felt like a failure because I was second bottom of my school year out of 150 kids, and I felt like a total failure. It was one of the worst days of my life. I can remember it like open it, and I'm like just devastated. Got told off by my parents saying